Hi, this is Dr. Richard Ruhling here to welcome you to the Total Health Channel. We're going to be talking about the best sign that the end is starting in Matthew 24 and the wedding in Matthew 25 with the sealing of 144,000 in Revelation 6 and 7. This is part one, so if you like this, please indicate it and subscribe so that you can get more. I'm going to be using a little teleprompter so I do this smoother. Um, Matthew 24 has signs like war, famine, pestilence, earthquake. Uh, these have been in existence for thousands of years. So what we really want is to see the worst things, not just all of that together, but there is a crescendo of them, and they are getting worse. But this isn't as helpful as knowing what the most important sign is, and we're going to talk about it in verses 14 and 15. This gospel of the kingdom, which is something we don't have yet, will be preached as a witness in all the world, and then the end will come. Well, that's where the period is placed, but that's not the way the words in Greek continue. It says, the end will come when you see a desolating power standing in the holy place. So that's the clue, really, that we've been overlooking. And the Greek has no punctuation, but most Bibles don't connect the end that way. Early Christians understood what that abomination or desolating power was. It was Rome. Why is Rome a desolating power? Well, they forced people to worship the emperor. And when Rome came, it was a bad sign for Jerusalem. Christians understood it, and they got out of there, and they were spared the siege by Titus in 70 A.D. So they were spared by obedience, really, and we're going to look at what that may mean to us. Rome, pagan Rome, fell, and papal Rome came along, the Holy Roman Empire, and it included the killing of 150 to 250 million Protestants during what we call the Dark Ages. And so it wasn't a good situation, and yet that's why America was founded, really. People risked their lives to come here for freedom in the New World, freedom of worship, of speech, and assembly, and so on. Well, somehow over the last couple hundred years, things have changed with immigration coming in from South America. Same religion as during the Dark Ages. The Pope comes to our country. He represented that country. Comes to Congress in 2015, telling us how to run the country. Well, if all of his people want to come here for a better life, why does he not just stay with it and help them to get a better life where they're at rather than coming to this country? I think it's a potential problem for illegal immigration or even legal immigration by the millions, because this is going to change the voting and what we're looking for. There's a movement now to change the Constitution with the possibility of a Sunday law that Constantine of Rome inaugurated or started in 321 AD. And so, but they're saying, well, the reason for it now is family, family togetherness and unity. Well, we can save the family if we just follow the Bible. We don't need a Sunday law. There's nothing in the Bible about Sunday as for worship. So that was Constantine, and the Pope went along with it. He said, well, Christ rose on Sunday, so but the early disciples didn't start worshiping on Sunday because he rose on Sunday. So basically, I'm saying we don't have it quite straight yet. The Acts of the Apostles, and by the way, Rome bases their doctrines on not only the Bible but tradition. But if you go back to the Acts of the Apostles, there's only one reference to the first day of the week in Acts of the Apostles when there are 9 references to Sabbath. And 3 times Paul was in the synagogue every Sabbath teaching, preaching, and so on. So somehow we don't understand what Rome's traditions are and where we're headed with the law to make everybody do it. That was really also a desolating power when Rome forced people to convert or die. It was really a depraved situation in my perspective, and let people do what they believe is right. The most specific sign that should lead us to do what the disciples did when they fled the city is what we've been talking about, When you see, and it's when you see Jerusalem compassed with armies, the city shall be taken, the houses rifled, women ravished, half the city goes into captivity. That's Zechariah 14, verse 2. Well, why is it assigned to us? Because Jerusalem is a representation of what the church will be if it refuses to walk in the light that God has given. And that's my favorite author, who said later that we aren't walking in the light. We can see it in the Bible also in Revelation. The last church in Revelation 3rd chapter is Laodicea. It means that we're lukewarm with materialism. They thought they were rich, increased with goods, didn't need anything, didn't know that Christ was outside knocking at the door. And by the way, that's how that church ended, with a knock, earthquake, really. But the Hebrew word for earthquake includes a severe meaning. And so basically that's a sign for us as well, earthquakes. And so let me just move this along to see where we're at here. When we see the surrounding of Jerusalem, we should realize that its time is up, and there's going to be an earthquake. We should seek a refuge place. They were to flee the city. Why not find a place in the country where we can survive in the end time? Food will be short. Find a farm with a gardener and offer to help them and pay some rent, and it might be a life-saving situation. Christ clued us in his last parables that no man knows the day or hour, but as the days of Noah. And in the days of Noah, the flood came with Passover timing, but in the second spring month. I call it a 9/11 timing because in Numbers 9, verse 10 and 11, there was a provision if they took a long trip, for example, and couldn't get back in time for Passover, they were not excused. They had to keep it the second month. And that's how he ended his parable with a wedding parable. Christ said his disciples didn't understand because the kingdom is like a man traveling to a far country. And he gave some 5 talents, some 3. Well, the key is that they didn't understand because it's like a trip to a far country. And we missed that because we didn't know that's a provision in Numbers 9, verse 10 and 11. But that's because this is to test us on how well we understand the Bible. Christ, really, God got an ignorant bride at Sinai that worshipped a calf 40 days later. Christ doesn't want an ignorant bride. He wants someone that knows what they're doing. And so some of these things are not obvious to us because we're not familiar with Scripture. But we need to be better. And I'm saying that when the Pope came to Congress, it was 2015, but we're looking now for something like this. And you can see this is what Christ said to understand the book of Daniel when he was asked about the end times. And the book of Daniel shows this conflict of a ram pushing from the Middle East. It's a Muslim ram, and they are pushing north into Russia, south into Africa, west to Europe and the New World. But they have Rome's practice of forcing people to convert. Behead them if they don't become a Muslim. Well, that's not very good, and I think we need to be very careful in the screening and the fact of what they believe, because they even believe they can lie for Allah and his cause. It's basically God separated everybody at the beginning at the flood. After the flood, when the Tower of Babel was being built, some went one direction that spoke one language, some went to another direction. But today, Rome wants to, Babylon means confusion, confuse or mix everything together. So I just say, hey, it's kind of bad to have to flee to America and then be mixed with everybody that was going to persecute you earlier, just looking for a time when the Constitution can be changed. So that's it. We've seen the abomination standing even in the Supreme Court, because Leviticus 18 verse 22 says to lie mankind with mankind as womankind is an abomination. And if everybody practiced that for just one generation, married someone of the same sex completely for one generation, we would all be extinct. no babies. So this is not. Sometimes you can't always see whether something's good or not unless you look at the extremes. And if you all do it, it's not a good deal. So I would just say we're facing a time when big things are going to happen. If you like what you hear in terms of the signs with the Pope and the Leviticus, actually 23rd chapter is the feast days, God's appointed times. His appointed time for judgment is like a 9/11 Passover in the second month. So when we see these things happen, get ready. Look for a place of refuge if you're still living in the city. I'm living in rural Arizona and happy to be there. A website with more information, if you like what you've heard, is you might like the book the book How It All Ends. And the website is Health, Happiness, and Destiny. You spell and out. 3 words everybody wants, so is health, happiness, and destiny.com. And we'll see you again in a couple days, hopefully. This has been part 1, and we'll hope to post another one for the weekend. God bless you, and thank you for liking and subscribing.